is the third video in our series of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. As you know, is the most important thing that you can do in marketing strategy. Segmentation, if you recall, is finding groups of people who have something in common, a similarity, maybe it's attributes of some sort. And the reason why we look for various groups of people is that they have something in common for which you might be able to demonstrate the value of your product. Because not everyone is going to want to buy our products and services, nor should we spend our time, money, and energy and resources in assuming that everyone is going to want our products. So we do segmentation, again, finding similar groups of people who are more likely to take advantage of our products and services. The second thing that we do is called targeting. And targeting is taking a look at all of those various groups and deciding and prioritizing which of those groups are you going to focus on. And how do you really take into account those differences between the groups and focus in on that target audience so that you can then develop specific messaging, great products that will resonate with the needs and the problems and the desires of that specific target audience. And the third concept is positioning, which we will talk about today. And what positioning is in marketing strategy is taking a look at those target audiences and ensuring that you have developed enough value in your offering to that target audience and be able to demonstrate to them that value in a way that is an advantage to you, a sustainable advantage to your organization, to your product. So let's take a few minutes to talk a little bit about positioning.
Here's what I found.
Siri wants to talk about it too, but we're not using her today. So positioning is a concept where you are trying to create a relative sustainable advantage over the other competitors that sell a product similar to yours, or getting the consumer to actually do something besides nothing at all. So what we want to do when we position something is understand that mind of the buyer, that target audience that we selected, and try to get them to perceive our actual benefit and value of our product and the perceived offering of what we bring to them. So what I mean by this is not every group or target audience is going to feel the same about your particular product. But what we want to do is focus in on those targets that we believe we have the best chance at winning over. And positioning, meaning developing that value that will resonate for them. So think about it this way. Positioning, sometimes we hear or we think about as how do we communicate? And yes, that is a very important part of our value proposition, is how we communicate it. But the thing that we need to understand is a position that a consumer has is a perception in their mind about our product itself, its features, its functionality, what it does for them to help them meet their needs. Another thing is price. Perhaps a consumer in your target audience believes your price is too high or too low, and they often value your product based on the price that they perceive it to be. It could be promotions. So think about, how are you communicating? Maybe you're using a testimonial or an endorsement or an image or some sort of campaign message that may or may not resonate with your target audience. So what you're trying to do in this case, whether it's product quality, promotion, price, or placing, meaning where your product is available, it has to align closely to the perception of your product, of the value to that target audience. So let's take a little bit of a look at this. So we do something in marketing called perceptual maps. And a perceptual map is a marketing research exercise that takes a look at your target audience. And what we do is we ask questions of that segment or that target audience about the perception of your products and services. So let's say, for example, you have a subscription service for a wonderful cheesecake offering. And you have, as a company, decided that you want to have the highest quality, most expensive cheesecake service subscription out there. You're going to deliver those cheesecakes in a best fashion, in a way that's going to come through UPS or come through FedEx in a yummy way where they're not going to get all melty and gooey, and that product will be the way you intended it to be when it's dropped on the doorstep of that buyer. So think about this. This is what we call the position where the business wants to be. So I want to have the highest quality, most expensive cheesecake subscription. So that would be a perception then. Think about your target audience, who you're trying to reach. That target audience is going to wonder, they're going to make a perception in their head whether or not your actual product, your pricing, your quality of the product, the delivery method, how you communicate, that will create a perception in their mind as to whether or not you are fulfilling on the value that you're promising. So a perceptual map, generally what we do is we take two separate attributes that are important to your product. Many times it's quality of product and pricing. Sometimes it could be delivery of your product, or customer service versus value versus pricing. So you're going to take and look at two different attributes that are important to the sales of your product. And then we are going to do a perceptual map, which I mentioned before is talking to a lot of consumers in the target segment you've selected for your product and determine, is their perception of our product where we want it to be? So let's take a little look at this. So I have on the screen here the subscription service for the cheesecake offering. And let's say, for example, that the company wants us to be the most exceptional, high quality cheesecake subscription service out there. So they are positioning themselves right here where that upper level star is, the highest level of quality and the most expensive. So generally what businesses do is they will take and they will move, they will play in one quadrant. I want to be the highest quality, most expensive. Maybe I want to be middle of the road in terms of quality, and a little less expensive. So you can see what the company is intending and who their target audience is and how they're providing value based on what area or what segment they want to play in. So I have an example here. So for the cheesecake subscription, I've determined based on types of different groups that are likely to take advantage of a cheesecake service, who their segments might look like. And so I have young families, and you can see here the circle of the young families is relatively large. So we have a lot of people in our target area where we're our target market who has young families. They're young people with kids, and there's a lot of them, hence the size of the circle. We also have over here college students. So college students is even a little bit bigger than the young families. And the college students is a large population. Now the empty nesters, this would be your retirees. They're a little bit smaller, but still a pretty good piece of the pie of number of population that we could target. And here we have in the smallest, the red circle, urban singles. Urban singles are your single people who like to entertain, live in an urban area, and there's not as many of them, as you can see from the map, from the segment size of the young families or the college students or even the empty nesters. So let's pretend that the subscription cheesecake service has decided that they want to have right here the exceptional quality cheesecake, great service, but they're very expensive. So this is kind of an elite product here. So if you look at what I've done here with these circles is, let's say we asked each of these separate segments or target audiences, because let's say there's lots of people who like cheesecake. These are the 4 that we've decided we are going to focus on as a company. Let's say that urban singles here is the closest in perception that cheesecake subscription service has the highest quality and is expensive. And they're okay with that. So we will focus, or they will likely say, yeah, maybe they went to market focusing on this particular segment. The empty nesters here are a little bit different. They're further away from the ideal perception that the company wants to have for their subscription service. The empty nesters feel that it's an expensive product, but the quality maybe isn't as high as the urban singles feel for whatever reason. And remember, we asked marketing questions or market research questions on these particular attributes, the 2 that you choose. In this case, it's quality and price. So the empty nesters aren't quite on par with where we believe as a company our subscription service is. So then young families are out here. Young families are in there's a lot of them, but when it comes to their perception of this product or this service, they're feeling that, you know what, it's not as expensive as we would think to feed our entire families with the service. However, we think the quality isn't all that great. It's sort of middle of the road here. And then if you look at college students, the college students feel that the cheesecake service is way too expensive and they don't think it's all that great. Maybe they have other options. Maybe they like to make cheesecake on their own. But for whatever reason, you can see for each one of these circles, it means the size of the segment and how they perceive the actual company itself in terms of quality and expense. So if I am the product manager for the cheesecake subscription service, and right now I know that I'm going to continue to serve that urban singles, try to maybe get them a little bit closer. Maybe I will tweak my product a little bit. I could add a couple of flavors maybe, but I'm going to figure out how am I going to change the mind of these urban singles to get them to believe the value. And that's what we call positioning. So there's another concept in positioning called repositioning. So say, for example, you are that cheesecake the cheesecake subscription. You are targeting the urban singles. You're almost on par with what they're looking for, but you want to go after a bigger slice of the cheesecake pie. And so you want to go after the young family. So in this case, you might have to make some adjustments, not just because you have a ways to go to take your young families and move them all the way up to where you believe your position is. So maybe you decide to have a different product line or a product line extension or a different way you deliver the product. Perhaps you only have 1 or 2 types of cheesecakes instead of a plethora of choices. Maybe they will be a different shape or size. But when you think about this, this is what we call repositioning. So we know we are out of reach for that young family audience. However, we could make some changes in our products to have that audience perceive us in a different way. So we might for this particular audience, develop a different expectation in terms of our position or our value. We still want to have exceptional quality, but maybe not quite as high as the Taj Mahal of cheesecakes. But what we want to do is maybe have it middle of the road in terms of pricing, so that the young families can afford that particular product. So what we do is a concept called repositioning. And we reposition not just in the way we communicate, but sometimes in order to change the perception of the consumer, we have to change the product. So this is perception maps, and we do this very often. And as I mentioned, there's lots of different, you can choose any 2 attributes that's important to your company and measure these over time. So when we think about the value that we create for the consumer based on where we want our companies to be, the position of our company in the mind of that buyer or that target audience, we ask 3 questions. Who are these customers? Who is the target audience? Then we ask, what is the set of needs that this product or service fulfills for them? What is that product itself? And then finally, why is this product or service the best option for them? Why does it satisfy their needs? So what we do is we take these 3 questions and we develop a statement. Now, this statement is an internal position statement that will help your company deliver on that value by really honing in on that target audience itself. It's not a tagline, it's not an advertising campaign, but think of it as your internal pitch to make sure that you are always on target with that target audience. So let's take a look here. There is a formula called the position statement formula, and trust me, this formula never changes. It will always be the same no matter what you're selling, no matter what industry you're in. It is a formula that you should always use when you're developing a position for your particular product and service. So it starts out with the 2. The 2 is the who. Who, meaning your target audience, who has what? And that's the need or the characterization. So we call that the who. The second part that we need to determine is the product. You may have a product that serves a different need to your audience. It could be the same exact product, but they use it in a different way, or they perceive it in a different way. So when you're communicating or you're positioning the value or tweaking your products and services for that target audience, you have to understand what the frame of reference is for that group of people. What is it, the functionality of that product? So we call that the product, the what. And then finally, this is your position. This is your value. How do you differ? What is your value based on the next best alternative, and why? How do you prove it? What's the proof of that? So that is the value, which is the why. So there's 3 elements in that position statement. Trust me, you will use this your entire career, and it's focused on a specific target audience. So let's see this in action. Okay, let's go back to my example of the cheesecake subscription. Now we're going to select one target audience that might be a segment for the cheesecake service. So let's choose young families. That was one of the segments they were interested in repositioning for. So let's complete a position statement for them. 2, young families, the target audience. Who, what do they want? What do they need? What are their desires? They want a tasty dessert. The product is a celebration treat. So this is a frame of reference as to how they will use your product. So for young families, they are going to choose this product, the tasty dessert, as a celebration. So that's the second piece. The third piece, that tastes better than store-bought. So this is your differentiator. This is your value that you give to the young families who want a tasty dessert, who are having it for a celebration, maybe a birthday or an anniversary, but they're feeding their whole family. So it tastes better than store-bought because, now this is important, this is the proof is in the pudding. This is the why you are different from the next best alternative. It's voted best by Parent Magazine. So you can see here, let's read through it. To young families who want a tasty dessert, the product is a celebration treat that tastes better than store-bought because it's voted best by Parent Magazine. So if you learn anything from segmentation, targeting, and positioning, as it relates to positioning, memorize this formula. Use this formula. Dig into each one of these attributes that is important to your target audience. So that's young families. Same product, we're going to position it a little bit differently, and we're going to use a different segment. So we have the urban singles. Remember, the urban singles was a little bit smaller segment size, not quite as large of a target market, but the existing product that the subscription had really fulfilled this nicely. They were very close to positioning it spot on in the mind of that urban single. So here's what we do. To urban singles, the different target audience, who entertain their friends. So no longer is it a tasty treat. The same product is an entertainment product. We're entertaining our friends. The product is the dinner party indulgence. So it's not the tasty birthday treat like we had with the young families. This is a dinner party indulgent. So I'm a young urban single. I'm having a dinner party. I want something to entertain my friends. I'm going to indulge them with these beautiful cheesecakes. That, here's your difference, has exotic flavors. So perhaps having one or two flavors for the young families, for the urban singles, you might differentiate yourself a little bit differently in terms of price, in terms of value by offering some different sizes, shapes, flavors for this particular target audience. So they want exotic flavors. And why? Because it's the go-to chef for dessert. It's the go-to home dessert for chefs. So see the nuance between how you took a similar product for the young families. You called it something different. It had a different use to them. It had a different emotional value to them. And you changed the product positioning for those two audiences. So that is one of the very most important things you're going to do in positioning. I want you to understand the formula. I want you to understand that for your key targeted audiences, you will create that position statement. And the beauty of having that position statement is you will always be on point with understanding the needs, the wants, the desires, how you're different, and the proof for each target audience. Then when you go to take your strategy to, let's say, a promotion agency, or you start to select your how you're going to target the audience in terms of a promotion or what your website looks at, or even your product offering as you start to think about research and development, go back to what's important to each one of these target audiences and look at your position statement. So I'm really excited that we've made it through segmentation, targeting, and positioning, and trust me, as I've mentioned before, these concepts are the very most important thing that you'll ever learn in marketing. So take the time to not only understand them, but use them in your own businesses and your own marketing career.